Hello and welcome. It's 10 a.m. on Tuesday, the 11th of November. You're tuned in to our mid-morning newscast here on Arirang TV. Thanks ever so much for joining us. I'm Mark Broome. Let's take a look at what's making the headlines. In a momentous deal, South Korea and China have agreed on a free trade agreement. Tariffs will be removed on more than 90% of their products over the next 20 years. The Korean government declares an end to the search for the 9 people still missing from April's Sewol-ho ferry disaster. Plus, around 50 students have been killed by a suicide bomber at a school in northeastern Nigeria. Police believe the Islamic militant group Boko Haram carried out the horrific attack. We start with news that South Korea and China have ended their 2.5 years of free trade negotiations. The announcement came during face-to-face talks between President Park Geun-hye and Chinese leader Xi Jinping ahead of the official opening of the APEC summit in the Chinese capital. The two leaders also discussed the possibility of holding a 3-way foreign ministers meeting with Japan. Our Chae-sun filed this report from Beijing.
The leaders of Korea and China meeting on the sidelines of the APEC summit in Beijing made a long-awaited announcement regarding their bilateral free trade agreement.
이 한중 FTA가 2년여간의 협상 끝에 드디어 핵심 사안에 합의해서 오늘 정상회담을 계기로 협상이 실질적 타결되었음을 발표하게 돼서 기쁘게 생각합니다.
The two presidents then talked about how the Korea-China FTA will be welcomed by the global economy, currently experiencing a delayed recovery and low growth.
I hope that the two sides will keep pushing for continuous and in-depth development in bilateral exchanges and cooperation.
Seoul and Beijing say they will remove tariffs on more than 90% of previously agreed products over the next 20 years. And rice, a super sensitive product for Korean farmers, has been excluded altogether. Korea's presidential office says compared to all the bilateral FTAs it has with other countries, this one contains fewer agricultural products subject to tariff removal. Shifting gears to regional security, Presidents Park and Xi agreed that they should look into a tripartite foreign ministers meeting with Japan before the year's end. Historical and territorial differences in Northeast Asia have soured ties and at times caused tensions. On North Korea, Beijing said it clearly opposes Pyongyang's nuclear development program and that it abides by UN Security Council resolutions against the regime. The two presidents then expressed the need to see creative and diverse ways to bring North Korea back to the six-nation denuclearization talks. Chae-sun, Arirang News, Beijing.
And later on Monday at the APEC gala dinner in the Chinese capital, President Park was seated next to Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. Now, her office says the two leaders discussed a wide range of issues and agreed to encourage officials involved in high-level talks to make progress towards resolving Japan's wartime sexual enslavement of Korean women. With Tokyo still refusing to make amends for its past wrongdoings, President Park has yet to hold an official one-on-one summit meeting with Prime Minister Abe. Now, going back to the Korea-China FTA now, and this latest free trade pact is expected to give the Korean economy a massive boost, as it will give local companies far deeper access to the gigantic Chinese market. Now, to take a closer look at some of the finer points of this landmark deal, our Song Ji-sun has this report.
Korea has become the first country among the world's top 10 trading nations to seal free trade deals with the U.S., the European Union, and now China. China is Korea's biggest trading partner, accounting for 1/5 of total trade volume, and research institutes suggest Korea's GDP will expand by 1% to 2% after the free trade deal goes into effect. Korean businesses would also enjoy tariff reductions of an estimated $5.4 billion a year.
We expect to accelerate entry into China's consumer goods and domestic markets. Instead of Korean conglomerates, who have already globalized, we helped open the Chinese market for Korea's small and mid-sized businesses and the agro-fisheries industries.
With a tariff reduction, Korean clothing, electronics, and sporting goods companies are expected to gain a competitive edge in pricing, as are the traditional export engines like steel and petrochemicals. Following the agreement, Seoul aims to boost its bilateral trade volume between the two countries to $300 billion next year, helping to eventually achieve a government goal of topping GDP per capita of $30,000. Seoul put protecting the agriculture sector as its first priority, excluding rice, the country's most sensitive item, along with more than 600 other major agriculture, livestock, and fisheries products. That's equivalent to 30% of all items in the sector imported from China in terms of amount, which is the highest level of exemption in any free trade deal Seoul has already signed. 송지선, Arirang News.
Now, following the Korea-China summit, President Park met with the APEC Business Advisory Council, where she talked about Seoul's supportive measures for the country's small and mid-sized firms. Stressing that an economy can gain vitality when a nation's SMEs are the central growth engine, the Korean president introduced her government's efforts to ensure that they can bring in capital and manage operations with only creative ideas and technologies. When asked about food and energy security, President Park mentioned private entities investing more into applying IT to agricultural production and governments opening up their energy and resources markets. Staying with that APEC meeting, and the leaders of China and Japan have met for formal talks for the first time since they took office, and it's hoped that this meeting that came on the sidelines of that summit in Beijing on Monday will be the breakthrough needed to end the bitter row between Asia's biggest economies over a variety of historical and territorial issues. Our Hwang Sang-hee reports.
Breaching normal protocol, Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe was the one to greet the stony-faced Chinese President Xi Jinping as he made his way in for their ice-breaking chat on Monday. The 30-minute meeting held on the sidelines of the APEC summit in Beijing came at the request of Japan and was their first face-to-face talk since both leaders took power in late 2012. Differences over issues dating back to wartime and competing claims to a group of islets in the East China Sea have kept the two sides apart. In a statement, the Chinese Foreign Ministry said she told Abe it's clear who is at fault for their poor relations and asked Tokyo to do more things that help enhance the mutual trust between Japan and its neighboring countries. Speaking to reporters, Abe called the meeting a first step toward improving their relationship and creating mutually beneficial strategic ties. Prime Minister Abe said the two sides agreed to set up a hotline to prevent maritime clashes, expressing hopes that they will soon start administrative work to implement the system. While no groundbreaking deal was reached, experts say the handshake between the leaders of China and Japan could mark a turning point, calling the simple fact that they met significant. Hwang Sang-hee, Arirang News.
Now, US President Barack Obama says North Korea needs to show sincerity about denuclearization if it wants to improve ties with Washington. Speaking at a news conference at the APEC summit in Beijing, Obama said the release of 2 American detainees over the past weekend was a, quote, small gesture. He added that Pyongyang's nuclear program was not discussed during the negotiations for those detainees, saying the nuclear issue is a core problem between the two countries. Obama stressed the US will be open to talk when North Korea is ready to seriously discuss giving up its nuclear ambitions.
Said that a team of South Korean...
Get connected to Korea and the world. Join us every weekday for the latest developments out of Korea, Asia, and beyond. On air, on your mobile, and online, we lead the way every day. Arirang News.
To try and resolve the crisis in Ukraine, the European Union also offers $15 billion. Now, to some news just in, and the government has called off the months-long search operation inside the sunken Sewol-ho ferry. Oceans and Fisheries Minister Lee Ju-young said that the families of the victims of the ferry disaster have agreed to close operations inside the vessel due to parts of the hull collapsing and with winter coming, water temperatures dropping rapidly. Regarding the issue of raising the vessel to the surface, the minister said that this will be decided after discussing the salvage with experts and also the relatives of the victims. The minister expressed deep regret for not being able to find the last 9 missing passengers. And the families of the victims of April's ferry disaster are set to announce that they agree with the decision to call off underwater search operations. They are scheduled to hold a press conference later this Tuesday at Jindo to spell out their wishes now. Now, Jindo is the closest land point to where the ferry went down, and it is where the families of the missing have been camped out waiting for news about their loved ones. Relatives had hoped more bodies would be retrieved after the body of a female student was recovered in October. Her body was the first to be discovered at the disaster site in more than 100 days. The families reportedly agreed that the search operations are now too difficult, at least inside the sunken ferry. They're expected to request a new set of measures to find their missing relatives. And on the legal side of this awful ferry disaster, a court in the southern Korean city of Gwangju is set to rule today on whether the captain of the Sewol-ho ferry should receive the death penalty for culpable homicide. A 3-judge panel will hand down verdicts and sentencing in the trial of 68-year-old Lee Jun-sok, as well as 14 crew members who will face lengthy jail terms if they are convicted. Now, death sentences are very rare in Korea. The country has not carried out an execution since December 1997. Lee Jun-sok and his crew were among the first people to be rescued from the sinking vessel, while the mostly teenage passengers waited in their cabins as the ferry went down. The Sewol-ho ferry capsized off Korea's southwest coast on April 16th. Most of the victims were high school students from Ansan on a class trip to Jeju Island. Now, in other news, the South Korean military has begun its near 2-week-long annual war exercise, and it's a huge one this year, and it's basically to prepare against possible North Korean provocations. And officials say this year's Hoguk exercise is focused on ways to establish the defense capabilities to deal with a range of issues, including an all-out war. Our Kim Yeon-bin reports.
South Korea began its annual Hoguk defense exercise on Monday, with a record number of personnel from all branches of the military taking part. The goal, according to a statement from the Joint Chiefs of Staff, is to bolster South Korea's defense posture against potential threats to regional stability, including those coming from North Korea. The 2 weeks of drills consist of numerous maneuvers, such as joint landing and maritime infiltration defense drills. More than 330,000 military personnel are taking part in the exercise, making it the largest ever Hoguk drill since the first one was staged in 1996. In past years, around 80,000 troops were involved. Over 23,000 fighting and transport vehicles are being used, along with 60 vessels and dozens of aircraft. An officer from the Joint Chief of Staff says the beefed-up exercise are in direct response to North Korea's recent provocations. On Friday, Pyongyang slammed South Korea for the planned drill, calling it practice for an invasion. In response, South Korean Defense Ministry spokesman Kim Min-suk stressed that the Hoguk drill has been conducted annually since 1996 to boost preparedness and coordination among the branches of the military. Meanwhile, the South Korean military says it fired 20 warning shots across its border with the North on Monday morning. This after around 10 North Korean soldiers approached the military demarcation line near Paju, north of Seoul. The North's military did not shoot back and retreated in the afternoon. Kim Yeon-bin, Arirang News.
Now, the new U.S. ambassador to South Korea is calling for even closer bilateral cooperation between Seoul and Washington. Meeting with South Korea's unification minister Ryu Kil-jae on Monday, Mark Lippert said the United States Embassy in Seoul is an important place for President Barack Obama. Lippert added that he will focus on coordinating the policies of the two administrations in the US and South Korea. Now, in response, the South Korean minister said he hoped to further boost cooperation, especially regarding North Korea-related policies. Mark Lippert arrived in Seoul late last month to start his new role as Washington's envoy to South Korea. He replaced the previous ambassador, Sung Kim. Time now for a look through the global headlines we're following on this Tuesday morning here in Seoul. For that, we turn to Eunice Kim, standing by at the News Centre. Good morning, Eunice.
Hello, Mark.
There has been yet another horrific attack in Nigeria, this time at a boys' school, killing at least 47 young students there.
Unfortunately, you are right, Mark, and police say the suicide bomber who was dressed up as a student was among those 47 killed. 79 others were wounded in this attack, and it happened in Nigeria's northeastern town of Potiskum, tearing through an assembly hall at the government science secondary school. Public schools were closed in nearby areas in reaction, and Boko Haram is again suspected in this latest deadly attack. The extremist group, waging a 5-year insurrection to build an Islamic state, believes boys should receive only Islamic education, while girls should be kept away altogether. A ceasefire had been declared by the Nigerian government 3 weeks ago, but that claim was dismissed as a lie a couple weeks after by Boko Haram's leader in a video. In heightened tensions between Israelis and Palestinians, separate attacks in Tel Aviv and the West Bank have claimed the lives of 2 Israelis. A 26-year-old Israeli woman was stabbed to death in the occupied West Bank near a Jewish settlement. The attacker was shot by a security guard. This is hours earlier. Another knife attack targeted a soldier in Tel Aviv. That soldier later died of his wounds. Both incidents have been described as terrorist attacks. The U.S. Central Command has said it launched a barrage of airstrikes against the Islamic State group over the weekend, 23 in Syria and 18 in Iraq. It said 13 were targeted near Syria's border town of Kobani, while in Iraq, 7 strikes hit the northern city of Baiji, where Iraqi military forces had tried to regain control of the country's largest oil refinery on Sunday. Meanwhile, U.S. officials maintained they did not have information to confirm local reports that the Islamic State group's leader Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi had been wounded from coalition airstrikes over the weekend. And the official start of winter may still be weeks away, but much of the United States will feel the chill of the season this week. Snow is already falling in parts of central USA, including the Twin Cities in Minnesota, where 150 flights have been canceled as the metropolis braces itself for upwards of 30 centimeters of snow into Tuesday morning. As much as 60 centimeters of the white stuff could fall in the Dakotas to northern Wisconsin, all the way up to upper Michigan. The Arctic blast is expected to move to the south before moving to the east by Friday, making it the widest and earliest cold snap the U.S. has seen since the 1990s.
And a good Tuesday morning to you all as we kick things off with Game 5 of the 2014 Korean series between the Samsung Lions and the Nexen Heroes, who went into the series tied 2-2 in the best-of-7 series. So let's take a look at the highlights from Jamsil Stadium. Of course, going to the game here, blanks across the board until the 6th inning. Seok Chang, RBI single to right. Park Hondo scores, and it's 1-0 Samsung. Bottom of the 8th inning, bases loaded, no one out. Park Sung-min pops out, and it's 1 out. Next batter, Park Hae-min chops one at first base here, and the force at home, and it's 2 outs. Next batter, Lee Hung-myung grounds out to second, and still 1-0 Nexen. But the bottom of the 9th inning, man on first and third, 2 outs for Cheong-woo. That's a fair ball down the right field line. One man scores. Kim Won-gon rounds third, and the play at the plate is safe, and the Samsung Lions win this one 2-1 and take a 3-2 series lead. And now with that, staying in baseball, for all you MLB fans in the nation, good news as one of the biggest names in Major League history will arrive in Korea later today. Now arriving at the Incheon International Airport later this morning will be Major League Baseball's career saves leader Mariano Rivera. The legendary closer will be in Korea and will leave on Saturday as a global ambassador for a sound system company. He plans to visit various tour sites and hold baseball clinics as part of his busy schedule. Now, Rivera, known for his devastating cutter, earned a record 652 saves and 5 World Series titles, all with the New York Yankees. And now shifting over to the 2014-2015 ISU Short Track World Cup, where 17-year-old Shim Seok-hee continues her dominance as she won her 3rd gold medal at the event as she won the 1,500-meter and the 3,000-meter relay gold after claiming the top podium spot at the 1,000-meter event the day before. And now with that, staying on ice, but over to figure skating now. Russia's Adelina Sotnikova, who won the much talked about gold medal during the Sochi Winter Games earlier this year, hasn't competed internationally since then. And it seems like that's going to be the case for the rest of the year. Now with a Grand Prix event coming up on the 14th, the Russian figure skater has been ruled out for 3 weeks after re-injuring her leg during training. Now, she expressed her disappointment on her SNS page as reports also state that she might be out for the rest of the year due to the cast on her leg. And now finishing things off in football, the Korean national football team has left to the Middle East on Monday in preparations for their November friendlies. With head coach Uli Stilicke preparing for the Asian Cup in January, the team is set to face off against Jordan on the 14th and Iran on the 18th, both, of course, away matches. The 60-year-old put together a 22-man roster, which includes 7 players based in Europe, 6 in the Middle East, 3 in Japan, 2 in China, and 4 others currently playing domestically in the K-League Classic. Now, with Lee Dong-guk and Kim Shin-wook out with injuries, manager Stilicke will work with a limited number of strikers as Park Ju-young hopes to make the best of his second chance with the national team. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Well, it's another chilly morning we are having, but just like yesterday, highs will get up to relatively mild side, leading to a big temperature gaps. And high pressure system from the west is giving us a morning sunshine. Then it should turn to a bit cloudier later in the day, so it will be a typical late autumn day overall. And let's take a closer look at the readings for today. Now, the daytime high in the capital and Gwangju will be topping out at 15, while Daegu and Busan will climb into 17 and 19 this afternoon. On to other regions. Jeju Island and Daejeon will be getting up to 16 and 15 later on, while Dokdo should see highs of 16. Well, nationwide sporadic shower is in store tomorrow morning, but it should let up before your morning commute, and it will be a much cooler day tomorrow. And Thursday, the lows will drop to -1, which is the day of the college entrance exam here in Korea. So please bundle up for those who are taking a test on that day. That's all for Korea, and here's the international weather for viewers around the world.
Well, that's all we have for now. We'll be back with our next newscast at noon Korea time. Until then, goodbye.